All right, 2.2, continuing our work with absolute value, this time focusing on equations and solving them. So the question is, how can you solve an absolute value equation? What are the steps to do that? So first off, we want to look at solving an absolute value equation graphically. So we've talked about how to graph the left side here. So let's pretend this was y equals to x minus 5 minus 4. So then our vertex is at 5, negative 4. And we have a slope of 2, so we're up 1, 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And we have a graph that looks like that. And then we have this y equals 2 portion here, which would be that portion there. And as we can see, we have some intersection at those 2 points. Now, if I was more accurate in this graph, I could see what those specific answers are. But I graph it to give a visual for how many answers we should expect with an absolute value. So a little reflection question here is, why does an absolute value equation have 2 answers? And then is it possible for an absolute value equation to have no solutions or 1 solutions? And I want you to think about those questions. We'll answer those in class tomorrow. So be prepared to share out your answers on those. All right, so let's look at solving here. So our steps, as we think about steps to solving, is 1, we want to solve for the absolute. This means we want to get it by itself. So on this first one here, I have a plus 2 that is there. So I want to subtract that 2 over, and we get the absolute value of 3x equals 6. And so now our absolute value equation is by itself. So now we're going to write 2 equations. One of them being positive, and the other being negative. So 3x equals 6, and 3x equals negative 6. Now, a quick refresher of why that is true. So if I do a basic absolute value equals, say, 10, I know the values that I can substitute in for x are positive 10, because absolute value of 10 equals 10. And the absolute value of negative 10 is positive 10 as well. So that's why I have those 2 equations. Solve both of them, divide by 3, and x equals 2. Divide by 3, and x equals negative 2. And that's our third and final step. Forgot to write here is now solve for x. Okay, so let's look at number 5 here. A couple more things going on the outside. So I'm going to solve. Essentially, I want to think of this as, say, 3y minus 2 equals 19. What would you do at this point? You would add 2. Well, that's what we're going to do here. And I get 3 absolute value of 4x minus 5 equals 21. Again, if we're up here and it was 3y equals 21, what we would do, we'd divide by that 3. And I get the absolute value of 4x minus 5 equals 7. Now, step 2 was write 2 equations. So I have 4x minus 5 equals 7. And 4x minus 5 equals negative 7. Notice the only thing that changes positive and negative is what I'm set equal to. My absolute value stuff, the 4x minus 5, stayed the same. From here, we're going to now solve for x. Now the steps are the same. I'm going to add 5. Over here, I'm going to add 5. You don't have to do them this order. You can do all of one, all of the other. I just want to show you that now the solving becomes essentially the same steps. So over here we get 4x equals 12. And over here we get 4x equals negative 2. Divide by 4. And x equals 3. Divide by 4. And x equals negative 1/2 as both our answers. Okay, and let's take a look at number 6 here. So we are going to subtract 2. And we get negative 5, absolute value of x plus 1 equals 10. I'm going to divide by that negative 5. And we get absolute value of x plus 1 equals negative 2. Now, whenever we're dealing with absolute values, we should always pause when we get our absolute value by itself and check. So as a reminder, an absolute value, regardless of what we have in this space, will always come out to be a positive. So over here, we are stating that whatever we substitute in for x plus 1 has to come out to be a negative 2. Well, that contradicts this statement that it always has to come out positive, which means this one has no solution. There is no value that we could substitute in that would allow us to solve, because an absolute value always comes out positive. And right here we have a negative, so that can't happen. So it is no solution. All right, so what I want you to do is describe in your own words the basic steps to solving absolute value equations and how many solutions you should expect. Again, be ready to answer this as well.